All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Hopefully, no interruptions today from people knocking at the door and tech difficulties. Of course, the other day, Rumble was slow to load. I don't know exactly what happened with that. Today, though, the chat's already working, so I'm hopeful that everything will be fine. Let's refresh and make sure that we're not talking to ourselves. It's okay to do once in a while, but, no, it's still saying please stand by. There are people watching. Okay, now we're live on Rumble. Okay, perfect. Look at chat as well. Lots and lots of shit happening. By the way, there is a hurricane that's going to hit Florida in the coming hours. So tomorrow I expect there will be significant damage. We'll probably be doing that as the headline of the day. Today we've got to talk about Nordstream. That's the big news of the day. First and foremost, though, if you're on YouTube, it's pinned at the top of chat on YouTube and in Rumble. It's in the description, the link to Pixel Planet. Take up those light blue pixels and start burying Turkey. We are counterattacking, of course. It's just for shits and giggles. I'm not going to make one-off videos anymore on the topic, and I won't mention it as often in the live streams either. Yesterday, we sunk all of Cyprus into the Mediterranean and proceeded to eat away at the coast of Turkey because they've once again begun invading all of their neighbors. I got a tip off that some people were planning for them to try to take over the whole world in Pixel Planet. Given the difficulties that they're having just fending us off, I don't think that's going to happen. And for some reason, that Turkish streamer didn't go live yesterday. So I don't know. He might have bowed out, realizing that it was futile, his particular actions. Probably a good decision. We'll see if he shows up today. Maybe he just had a hey. Maybe he's got the coof or something like that. I will be monitoring. The link will take you directly to the area we're currently pixeling in, and you can look and see. There aren't that many colors to choose from, so just start dropping them wildly over all of Turkey. There is a captcha there. By the way, you will have to do that sporadically. Don't worry too much, though. It's literally just for the lulz. We've decided to become griefers on the platform. Oh, and the cooldown right now is only 4 seconds, so I'll be checking up on your work. Consider this your homework of the day. Gerald Armstrong, the U.S. did it. We will be discussing who done it. I also did a one-off video this morning on the topic, and I've got thoughts and doubts about the official storyline. Swedish seismic network registers blasts near pipeline leaks. The Swedish National Seismic Network says it detected 2 explosions close to unusual leaks on 2 Russian natural gas pipelines running under the Baltic Sea to Germany. Yes, the Nord Stream pipelines have been damaged and are currently inoperable because of this. This would have required, because it was clearly sabotage, at this point, I think that's beyond debate. It would have required that someone get into the area and send divers or a drone or something down, or really, really sophisticated system scanning the underwater area to drop an explosive next to it, perhaps, in order to blow the pipeline. Somebody was claiming that there was a U.S. ship only about 20 miles from there at the time of the explosions. Press X to doubt about that particular ship. It could have been any in the region at the time, but it's possible. Now, the official storyline that it was immediately gone with by the legacy media was that Russia did this. Russia scuttled the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines for potentially unknown reasons. I think there is a potential reason behind it, which should frighten people. But also people are saying, was it the U.S.? Maybe it was the Germans themselves. Could it have been Ukrainian saboteurs? The only reason I can think of that Putin and the Russians would scuttle it is as a symbolic gesture, because he's been throttling the gas supply anyway through both pipelines gleefully this entire time for months now, putting the screws to Europe because it became over-reliant on Russian natural gas. So the détente of Europe towards Russia did not work. Just like the U.S. détente of China didn't work. It never works. Appeasement will always fail. It will always embolden your enemies. This is why we shouldn't be giving money to Iran. I don't care if they develop the bomb or what they do in their region, but trying to bribe them is not going to work. And the only reason I can think of that Putin would do this, because he already controls the flow of the gas in the first place and is using it as leverage, is to effectively say, fuck you to Western Europe and say, I don't care about the leverage anymore. I'm never going to restart giving you gas. Go ahead and freeze. I think that that's unlikely, though, because he can always stop the gas flow anyway and use it as diplomatic leverage and try to get them to ask him to please turn on the supply. I'm doubting that it would be Russia that's actually responsible. And then you have the U.S., probably number one in most people's minds as far as potential guilty parties. Biden had made comments prior to the war in Ukraine to the effect that Nord Stream would not go forth if Ukraine was invaded. This is coupled with more recent comments by multiple Biden admin officials that seem questionable under the circumstances. They see it's almost like a brag to Russia, like, hey, it'd be a shame if your pipeline got blown up now, wouldn't it? I think that's more likely than that Russia did it, but we don't have proof. The third possibility, of course, is Ukrainian saboteurs. They did this in order to escalate the tensions in the region, to keep Western Europe, especially in the U.S. as well, giving them weapons and ire for Russia going off the rails, a false flag operation. It could also be the Germans or the British. I think that the most likely explanation at this point is that the U.S. government decided to pull the pipeline specifically to prevent any negotiations between Russia and Germany, to force NATO into a situation where there can be no negotiation over the gas because it can't flow. But we don't have proof of this. We have speculation. We have circumstantial evidence, of course, but we don't have any proof of this. And so you're going to see a lot of people declaring positively they know exactly who did it based on something they saw on the internet. Again, press X to doubt, fog of war style. At this time, we're not sure. If we get a declarative statement by the Kremlin, by DC, by CNN, or the BBC or something, when Buckingham Palace weighs in, I immediately doubt it, because I notice that oftentimes those statements contravene others, and only one of them in most cases can be true, if any. Dan Heim, time to collect and save those bottle caps. I have a big-ass bottle cap collection back in Rutland. Meximan and cheese. People don't seem to be buying the Russia did it to themselves line. It seems to be a stretch too far for all but the most indoctrinated. Yeah, I mean, I do doubt the official storyline coming from MSNBC at the moment. 87 Sparky. Here in Florida, I will clank while the storm passes. Yes, if you are in Florida, be careful. If you haven't evacuated, you're going to have to hunker in the bunker. Hismanai, happy clank. Kyle Miller, after the Afghanistan withdrawal last year, I would be very concerned about the Biden admin trying to start a war in Europe with Russia. It's possible. Biden is war happy. Gerald Armstrong, it could be Ukraine. Weren't Russia and Germany trying to make a deal to open the gas? Perhaps Ukraine was being petty. Or it could be the U.S. Maybe they want to sell gas to Europe themselves. Benedict Anders. Yo, Sticks, watching this from Tampa Bay area while Hurricane Ian ramps up. The eye is below us right now in Fort Myers. Could be a Cat 5. So far, there's just a lot of rain in my area. Yeah, let's hope it's just a bunch of rain. Florida's relatively flat and can deal with that. Not a banned account. Will Russia use nukes on themselves to blame NATO? That would be suicide. I doubt it. Not a banned account. Now that Putin is losing power, will Ukraine attack? There's no evidence Putin is losing power. Again, just speculation. Jack's regret. Is that always the same cat joining us in videos? Clank on, and thank you for what you do. Mainstream media is god-awful. Yeah, here you can actually have some audience participation. No, there are two cats, actually. This is Farah, and Yana, the other cat who looks very much like her, but her personality is a little bit different, let's say, is asleep over there on the couch. Most often, it's Farah that's joining for live streams. She enjoys it. She's locked out of the room upstairs right now where she had been sleeping because, of course, the baby needs to take a nap with her mother. And so the kitty comes down here. So, yeah, Nord Stream, I'm not sure who scuttled the pipeline, but it was clearly a human and intentional act. It wasn't an earthquake. It wasn't someone accidentally dropped an anchor on something that's shielded by inches of reinforced concrete, which wouldn't probably have stopped it anyway. It wasn't a giant shark or a giant squid or anything like that. It was blown up intentionally. We'll wait and see if we get any additional evidence. I have a feeling the story will be buried at some point. Rocky. Gas price, Victorville, California, went up a full $1 at the Shell station near my house, surpassing $7 again for premium in some places. Some people are claiming there was a refinery fire in Toledo, Ohio, that's leading to higher prices in some areas. How this correlates to some areas going down at the same time, I'm not sure. So I have no clue. Gas prices are just decoupling from reality at this point. Not a banned account. Will Europe declare martial law during shortages? I don't think you're going to have a shortage of anything but people's purchasing power. If anything, you'll end up with overstock. Now, because of the inflation, demand rose, supply began to rise, and now demand will plummet because people can't buy anything other than staples. And so a lot of the stuff will just rot on the shelves. If you end up with an economic catastrophe, I think that's more likely than shortages, at least at this time. We'll wait until next harvest season to see what happens next year. Danine. Didn't Russia have EU contracts for gas deliveries that they had to adhere to? Maybe this is their way out. If not, then any guess could be right. It could be Denmark to get U.S. troops stationed at Bornholm. I doubt that the Danish are interested in doing something like that. Yes, there are contracts there, but Russia was ignoring them anyway. So, Aaron C. I'm skeptical of the pipeline thing actually causing a hot war like a lot of people are saying. I don't think it causes a hot war because one's already there. It's already happening. Russia has already invaded a neighboring state. I don't think they're going to nuke them or something like that. I think that's CNN hyperbole. But it is a war, a real one with, at this point, many tens of thousands of casualties. We're not sure the exact count, and huge destabilization. Everyone's having problems. Next news story. There's one part in here that I'm going to read verbatim. In midterm politics, historical analogies work until they don't. It's talking about the midterms and how, when you look at Biden's approval, the generic in-party versus out-party support, typically in midterms, the Republicans should sweep the midterms, at least at the House level. There's one section here, and I'm going to read it verbatim. I've got to, yes, here's the part. I'm just going to read this. Indeed, there is evidence in the new poll that Democrats in mostly Democratic districts are particularly fired up about the election, even more than Republicans in mostly Republican districts. But at the same time, voters in competitive districts are moving towards Republicans. This is from the Langer research analysis. This is a quote within a quote. Among those living in congressional districts that are rated at least somewhat competitive, neither solid Republican nor Democratic, registered voters favor Republican candidates by a wide 55 to 34%, nearly as big as the Republican lead in solid GOP districts, plus 24. Democrats lead by 35 points in solid Democratic districts, pointing to a potential overvote where they're already most prevalent. Here's what I've been saying. I've said it for months. What you see right now is that a lot of people are making the mistake of looking at the congressional generic ballot and a handful of races and a handful of enthusiasm polls, and they're extrapolating it to be good news for the Democrats, but they're not looking at where those polls are being held. It happened in 2020. Joe Biden's enormous popular vote lead, Hong Kong, was largely California and New York. It was areas that are already far blue. What does it matter whether 100 or 150,000 Democrats or Republicans, for that matter, come out to vote in a district that's already spoken for? Unless you have a massive lopsided turnout in the district, it doesn't change anything, and it has to be the out party getting that turnout. I would favor, based on this model, and this is just one study, but it's a fairly decent one. It seems to be apparent that it's trustworthy. I would expect the Republicans to absolutely kick ass in competitive districts. Now, this is more of a House thing than a Senate thing. Senate, of course, is state level, with the exception of a few states that are quite rural. That tipping may not actually be there. House districts, though, are smaller than states. In fact, some states are a House district. Wyoming and Vermont. By the way, in the Vermont House race, Peter Welch, the Democrat, hanging on to not that big a lead considering how blue Vermont has been for the last generation. I don't think it necessarily impacts the Senate as much. But if in these competitive states and districts, you have a fairly significant, a double-digit lean towards the GOP, similar to what you'd see in a red state, it's all over. The midterm elections will go the GOP way, and there will be a red wave. This is what I expect to happen. In fact, if I gave even more credence to this particular study, I would revise my estimate from 25 to 35 seats roughly to 35 to 45 for the GOP, which wouldn't actually be out of line historically, considering Biden's approval and the correlation of approval of the in-party with what happens in the House. Again, the Senate can go in the total different direction. You could have the Dems pick up 3 Senate seats, which is what they're literally aiming for right now. They're trying to bypass the filibuster. They're getting angry at Manchin and Sinema. And it also studies separately the impact of Roe v. Wade. As I pointed out, while that does shift politics, it mainly shifts it among people that have strong opinions about abortion, which tend to be congregated in those areas that are less competitive. It doesn't affect the 50-50 county out in the middle of some Midwestern state. It doesn't affect like Iowa voting the same way that it would impact New York City. On one hand, of course, going to be much more pro-abortion because of partisan politics, or some cornfield out in Wyoming, where people tend to be more religious, more evangelical, some of the Bible Belt areas as well. So I do trust the study. It has me questioning whether I shouldn't revise my estimates upward for the GOP in the House. As far as the Senate and gubernatorial races, I don't think it changes things. Meximan and cheese, with most blaming Biden since he did say there would be no Nord Stream 2. Do you think the suffering this winter will finally drive the EU from the US? No, I don't think that it will drive the EU and US apart from one another. If anything, it'll raise more ire towards Russia among some Europeans, I think. Unless it is revealed with positive proof that the US did blow up the pipelines, which could happen. Merrick Grimaldis, the pipe was hit by the Russian ship Moskva, transformed into a sub. Lol. Disc and Balls Golf Channel. California regulations prevent importation of a lot of finished gasoline, so their prices are always higher. You also, I think, have a high gas tax in California. Chuck Morris, the rich will flee Europe this winter. Will you? No, I'm just going to live my normal life and go back and forth as I please, because I don't have to worry where my next meal is coming from. And so I feel sorry for people that are like in the working class right now, especially in the UK, more than even the EU states. They're getting hammered. They rose the cap on the amount that they can have to pay for basic fuel significantly. It's a significant proportion of a person's budget. Alex Bogey. All land east of the Dniester River was Russian to begin with. Ukrainians were unreasonable to rule Russians without allowing for Russian language. Disagreed, because I believe in civic structures having validity. The fact that they speak Russian does not make it part of Russia. Now, that would indicate that a large chunk of the United States should belong to Spain. A large part of Canada should belong to the British, etc., etc. Carrie C. sent $9.99. No comment, thank you. Green Top LLC. Sticks, for your information, California is cut off from domestic oil imports by anything but truck due to the Rocky Mountains and no pipelines. Therefore, they import a lot, if not most of their oil by sea. And that, 1 out of 2, he sent a second to follow up, 2 out of 2, leads to the high prices there, as most, if not all of the fuel in Cali is refined there from those imported stocks. Hunter, do you think the economy crashing around the world will finally destroy fiat money and put us back on a gold standard? No, nor would I support such a move. I've already explained, because gold prices, or value rather, in transactions is malleable. It would allow foreign states to hoard gold and then crash your economy. Brian Zward, it will be interesting to see how much the Germans will pay to heat their homes this winter. Are they going to be forced to set their thermostats to 68? Brr. I think there are already caps on businesses in Germany and how high they can raise the temperature. No joke. Chasing My Liberty. Shout out my channel, and I see these young people conscripted in Russia. Many are deer in headlights. If they survive, they won't be the same. Am I safe in Georgia? If you mean the country of Georgia, probably. If you mean the state of Georgia, it depends on how far you are from Atlanta. HF Sticks, good morning. I have a hurricane headed my way here soon. Wish me luck. Yes, make sure to have a flotational device, just in case. Hope you have a canoe or something like that. Go to the next news story. This one's funny. And not archived, by the way. Links in the description to all of these stories that I'm covering. You can review them for yourselves. Alex Pfeiffer posting. This is amazing. Don Lemon tries to blame Hurricane Ian on climate change. NOAA's hurricane director shuts him down. Don Lemon, about half of the way through this, when the NOAA's literal hurricane director, who is an expert in hurricanes, I would hope, although it is a government institution, so, you can never quite vouch for it. Don Lemon keeps badgering him about climate change, and the director there's like, I think it's a stretch, basically, to try to say that any individual storm has been strengthened by climate change, so we'll change the topic to the here and now, like what's actually happening. And Don Lemon's like, well, I lived in that area actually for years, and I can vouch for them. These storms are definitely intensifying. It's funny because part of the CNN crowd will side with Don Lemon on this because they're a bunch of moron lemmings. And the fact is that indeed climate change is not making hurricanes more intense. Just to be clear, hurricanes have been happening for a very long time. Sometimes you get a really big one like Katrina. Sometimes they peter out. They go to the left, they go to the right. They circle back around like Jen Psaki and smash into the same small country twice in a row. By the way, I keep seeing all of the liberals out there ridiculing the Texas power grid. I'm wondering if they're going to talk about Cuba because the entire island nation is currently without power. Other than the one little chunk of capitalism there at Gitmo, that's probably still got its generators going. Everyone else there has no lighting or heating or cooling or anything else and are miserable. But then again, they're communists. They've always been miserable. Not a band account. How much we need to donate to stop the Florida hurricane? Yeah, I know. Kamala, I think the other day was pointing that out. Well, we made legendary investments in climate change. That's going to stop it. Biden, some time ago, was like, well, the most important thing you can do is to get vaccinated before the hurricane hits, because that makes things a lot more difficult. Is there any point at which something that he says is so far beyond the pale that the liberals are actually going to finally wise up and realize that he's not playing with a full deck? Apparently not. Andrew Gagner. Funny to hear the folks who said you were stupid to believe the Russians would invade Ukraine because there was no benefit to it now saying the same about the pipeline. Aussie's robots. Morning, Sticks. In the evacuation zone right on the ocean. Send some incantations so we don't blow away Wizard of Oz style. Everything I see happening, COVID, war, economy, etc., is ushering the Great Reset. Yeah, I said the other day, if the damage from this storm is catastrophic, they're going to start rambling about DeSantis. They've got DeSantis derangement syndrome, DDS for short. If it's not catastrophic, then they'll just revert to what Don Lemon is saying here and ramble about climate change endlessly. Now we've got a funny story. It says nothing to do with news, only sort of kind of about politics. Kim.com on Twitter has blocked yours truly. So following in the footsteps of Ron Perlman and other cringe lords, this bloated socialist decided to block me. He made a post where he rambles about Peter Thiel buying into Rumble. He's decided to invest, I can't remember exactly how much, significant amount. He's not the majority shareholder. He's not buying Rumble or anything like that. And Kim.com was rambling about this. Now he makes a post where he's sour grapes about it and saying, well, it's the deep state. Peter Thiel runs Palantir. And so naturally, a Rumble will be compromised by this and start data mining people. And I pointed out, well, you're just a bloated socialist trying to poison the well. You've got one of the main new tech sites has taken off, become more mainstream. It's absorbing huge numbers of users and becoming more and more lucrative. So naturally, investors are buying into this. I didn't say it in so many words because it's Twitter and I can't. And you're just poisoning the well. Yeah, it's sour grapes. I guess Kim.com has said he didn't come up with the idea. In his post, though, he limits replies. Why do that? Why do you don't usually do that? Normally your replies are open. Why is it all of a sudden that you limit replies when you're bitching about Rumble Incorporated? Could it be because they've taken off, they've cracked through the glass ceiling on new tech, and they're enabling people that you happen to disagree with because you're a fucking socialist? I think that's the reason why. If anyone's sketchy, it's Kim.com. Why hasn't he been extradited yet, would be my question. Who's shielding him? I've got questions. I've got concerns. Why don't we just do what he's doing and just presume the fact that he's being shielded by the deep state in order to continue? Why is he not banned on Twitter? Shit, why hasn't the government cracked down on you? They've been urging Twitter and Facebook and a million other new old tech sites to censor other people. Why are you allowed to speak on the site? Meanwhile, you block people that criticize you because of your fifis getting hurt. What a fucking pussy. He's just a pussy and a coward. And I find that very, very funny. What I wouldn't give for one of these people to actually engage me instead of just pussying out. Immortal Legend, I'm late in stream. Can confirm fire in Toledo, Ohio gas plant somehow hasn't affected the area with its prices. So yeah, it's a very, very funny. Kim.com, he wants to serve up food, but he can't take the fire and so has to get out of the kitchen over and over again. He's just, he's got some issues, I suppose. It's like you're a very free speech warrior and very concerned about tech security and privacy and people being able to speak freely online. But then you have a site where people can do that. You badmouth them. Meanwhile, you're doing it on Twitter of all places. Oh yeah, they've got a lot of free speech on Twitter, and they're totally not monitoring everything you do. And then you bitch out at people, you lash out at them. You try to keep that from happening by not even letting people comment on your fucking post. What a hypocrite. I've disliked him for a very long time. I think that my concerns about him have been borne out properly. I never tire of being right. Censored. Love you long time, Sticks. Cindy Drellick. How soon before we poor and middle class have to convert to electric cars? Eyeballing horse and buggies lately. They can trot past the cars that die in these New Hampshire winters and leave a bit of horse dung for emphasis. Yeah, I think I would rather have a couple of horses and a buggy than get an EV. You know, to gas them up, all you need is some carrots and shit and some oats. You know? People out there, it's fun. People be like, well, it took so much care for the horse. Yeah, you wash your car constantly and send it into tune-ups and shit like that. You're constantly fiddling around with your cars. I don't know. There's something nostalgic about having a 2-horsepower engine up front, hitched to the wagon. Adam THM, Sticks, do you think FDR, jumped the bomb, doesn't get enough flack for turning away Jews back to Europe to die in World War II? The left covers up for him more than Lincoln. Yeah, and also the Internment Act, throwing several 100,000 law-abiding U.S. citizens and residents into concentration camps based on their ethnicity doesn't really help his point either. And the whole prolonging the Great Depression with his shit projects thing, basically it was the original version, his New Deal crap, much of it at least, never panned out. It was basically like shovel ready. Obama was a microcosm of FDR in all the worst ways. Mr. Wonderful, notice how palm trees don't get knocked over in a hurricane while mighty oaks do. It's because of millions of years of being in hurricane climate cultists. Yeah, it's evolution. They're designed for that. Transylvanian 90. Hey, Sticks, Pixel Planet is funny. In the Balkans, it feels like 1400 again. Greece is occupied. Albania and Bulgaria almost gone. Romania is holding off the Ottoman plague. We could use some clanker help. Yeah, we're currently helping. We're disappearing large areas of the coast of Turkey. Again, everyone, you can take the link in the description or at the top of chat if you're on YouTube and just take up some more ocean and dump it on the southern Turkish coast. A huge chunk has disappeared since this video began. Someone's clanking over on what used to be the Turkish star. Nobody invading Constantinople at the moment. It's by the way, it is completely pointless. Oh, I see Ataturk is trying. They're trying to rebuild Ataturk. Maybe we should go after that instead. Can I grief this? Yeah, you can grief Ataturk too. He's up there in the Midwest of Turkey. Dump a bunch of shit on Ataturk's face there. I'll post the fucking link here. Let me get the exact coordinates for people who aren't familiar with Pixel Planet. There, I posted it in chat on both platforms. Go get Ataturk. Focus on him for now. I'll see how deformed he gets. He's been fucked up for days now. Joker 1. Putin sends a submarine with 3 Spetsnaz frogmen teams, blow up the pipelines, and blames it on Biden, who previously threatened to do so because Biden is a baked potato. Possible, splits EU and USA. It is possible that it is a false flag by Russia, specifically because of the Biden admin's comments with regards to it. I just press X to doubt on this one. I think it's more likely that the Biden admin really did do it. It's certainly not certain though. ES1776, my 4-year-old mini clanker grandson is watching with me. Said he didn't know Jesus has a YouTube channel. Well, hello to him. God, now I have to swear less. Dagnabbit. Consarn it. Mick Adams. Hey, Sticks, I just heard Nigel Farage copped a $3,000 bill from police in Sydney so his event could go forward. I guess free speech ain't so free there. It's never been a thing in the British Isles. There's never been free speech in England. Now we have the congressional generic ballot. Again, you can follow along with these links in the description as well. The 2022 generic congressional vote right now is totally neck and neck, slightly moving towards the GOP. It's really hard to tell because sometimes in October it swings wildly against or for either party, or comes uncoupled from all reality. We're never going to get fully accurate numbers here. What I would put out is that it looks like both of the lines have stabilized some. And if the GOP even comes in a couple points behind, if the study showing a huge skew in the competitive districts is true, it's not going to save the Democrats. They're going to be expecting victory. Idiots will look at this and say, well, the Democrats are ahead on the generic ballot. Ergo, the Democrats should take House seats. They'll actually think they're going to expand their House majority like Michael Moore does. Oh boy, your tears are going to be fucking delicious. Meanwhile, there are idiots like Newt Gingrich and the GOP saying, oh, we can pull in 6 Senate seats, probably. There's a real outside chance of that, Newt. A real outside chance. Don't go full Karl Rove. It's a bad idea. You're a conservative, right? Be conservative in your estimations. Styx Hexen Toolbox, please come back. The nails have united with the bolts to overthrow the rest of the toolbox. You're the only one who can keep the nails in their place. Too busy keeping the Ottoman Empire in its place by removing large parts of its place from the Mediterranean basin. Jeff Tube, how long until the NFA is overturned? That may actually happen. What was once a glorified pipe dream among those who understand the meaning of the Second Amendment may actually be possible post-Bruin. El Presidente, good afternoon. I assume in your area, Lord Clank. Don't know if you've checked out Tudor Dixon versus Bitchmore, but I live in Michigan and wanted an outside take. I believe that in Michigan it's leaning blue, if I remember correctly. Unfortunately, but you can't win them all. Yeah, Ataturk's getting fucked pretty quickly there. We'll turn him into a pool. We'll turn him into ocean as well. They keep trying to rebuild that. They've got an obsession with Cyprus, which no longer exists. Ataturk, who's been griefed over and over. And for some reason, just the Istanbul area. And this is sort of just a vague griefing attack against them for attempting and failing to grief Clankdom. They're not doing too good because we keep repairing it faster than they can break things. They just don't have the stamina. See, what I do is I'll load shit onto there and it'll last for hours and hours and hours. What they do is that they get together on Discord and they plan a time and spend half an hour griefing something and then they leave. That seems to be the MO of the would-be Ottoman Empire. Salty Ironworker, good morning. Could you please tell me your take on Ray Epps? Is he FBI or something like that? Possibly, but not certainly. Why else do you think the Dems seem to protect him whenever a Republican brings him up? That's the suspicion. They should. I mean, he's supposedly he's an evil MAGA figure, and he was there at an insurrection, and we've got him on video encouraging people to do insurrection-y things. Right? Why don't you want a further investigation? It's a sort of consideration that they don't give to literally anyone else that was there that day. Even people who never got near the Capitol are crucified. The pictures of them circulated online to get them fired and shit. Mr. Wonderful. Not a coincidence that on the same day Nord Stream 1 and 2 get wrecked, that the Baltic pipeline is suddenly announced ready to go 6 months early. No, it's probably not a coincidence. Elizabeth's philosophy. The chaos in the toolbox is making our garage unsafe. There is no garage here. Hell, half the Dutch population doesn't even own cars, I think. Bikes are extremely common here. I just walk everywhere. DVS Lord, the Salty General and the Ace are proud to be part of the Clank Army for Operation Sink the Bird. White Owl 217, Rachel Dolezal made an OnlyFans, LMAO. Yes, unfortunately, I did see that. You probably should not look it up unless you need some eye bleach afterwards. It's not necessarily the most pleasant thing in the world. Doesn't surprise me. When your grift dries up because the whole transracial thing is not accepted by the leftoids, who 10 years from now will call her a visionary and will accept it, by the way, that you have to make money some way. So I guess, lingerie photos is the way to go for someone who I think is in her mid or late 40s or something. Kind of weird. Brian Kemp goes for the jugular as Stacey Abrams' campaign continues its free fall. Yes, Stacey Abrams, we can officially consider her candidacy dead at this point. She's not really campaigning actively as much as her opponent, who has the incumbent advantage anyway. But my point here, within Georgia is that Georgia's a state that for 5 or 6 cycles had become more blue over time. It used to be a fairly solidly red state back in the 2000s. And in the 2010s, it leaned slightly red. They were hoping, the Democrats, that it would become by now a leaning blue state, sort of like Virginia. But it hasn't done that. Kemp is going to win by a considerable margin over his opponent. Now, his opponent is fairly weak, but she did get within 1 point of him prior. That's without the incumbent advantage, so grain of salt mode activated. Now it looks like it'll be 6 or 7 points, potentially. And if you do have a midterm swing for the GOP, it could be 10 points. It could be 11 points. That would be a crushing defeat, and they're already running interference for her to try to salvage the rest of her career. I spoke about this a couple of live streams ago with that Cope article from, what was it, Slate, I think. Oh, well, Stacey Abrams' gubernatorial run isn't the only thing that she's doing. She's written books. Did you know that? She's got a speaking career. She's emerged as one of the foremost BLM pro activists. Oh, wow. So you don't want to talk about her gubernatorial run. I wonder why. It's because they're looking at the polls, realizing she's been ahead in none of them, in a state that is now tipping back towards red, much like Texas is. We'll see the result there against Beto. We will be doing a major autopsy of the midterm election the day or two after the midterms. Don't worry, that'll be an entire live stream in and of itself. I may not even do a news roundup that day, partially because I'll be a little bit too tired to do 2 fucking live streams after probably going live for 4 or 5 hours the night of with Sleazy P. Martini. Thank goodness I won't have to do all the talking this time, because otherwise I definitely wouldn't be able to make a video the next day at all. Stacey Abrams is, well, number one, she's a loser. She's an id poll candidate. She's not really formed a coherent platform other than you're evil, MAGA evil, fucking vote for me because I'm the right color and the right gender. But one would think that that would work if you had an energized Democratic population in a state that supposedly leans blue now. But the fact is that's not true. El Presidente, I think you will be surprised in Michigan, but appreciate your work and have a wonderful day. It would be nice if I was surprised by Michigan's results. I just don't think that they're going to go the GOP's way. Corto Maltese. I knew a guy who escaped Cuba. Nice. Very hard worker, really quiet, never a disparaging comment. But I asked him about communism once and his mood changed, got really quiet and said he hated it. Yeah, I can imagine. They got some really nice vintage cars when they can find the parts to keep them running. By the way, are the Democrats going to badger the Cubans for all of the old 50s and 60s gas guzzlers that they drive around? Why aren't they using EVs? Nancy Pelosi should launch an initiative. Deny-ness, I have actually seen people online who didn't know or believe Ray Epps was on video telling people to go in. Yeah, that's because when you try to confront them with it, they never open the link because they just think you're a crazed conspiracy theorist. Next news story, and for some reason there's a thing in front of it. Oh yeah, I remember what this was about. You can read the article if you want. The Democrats are trying to blame the GOP right now for the economy. Whoops, that means mixed messaging because supposedly the economy is fine. To hear Biden talk about it, the economy in the U.S. is soaring right now. Everything's hunky-dory. Wages rose. Unemployment's down. Well, it's going up again, but it was going down. Inflation's in control. Nothing to see here. Everything's fine, people. We hear it from him. We hear it from Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary. We hear it from Buttigieg, who's right now busy running trains, but he talks about the economy too occasionally, specifically with regards to infrastructural development. We hear the Democrats constantly praising Biden on economic issues, on which he's about 20 points underwater with the U.S. public, by the way, tacking well ahead in disapproval of anything with regards to his aggregate actual polling, showing that it ain't that's improving. So then why are we getting the Democrats attempting to blame the economy on the GOP that doesn't hold the House, which controls the purse strings, doesn't hold the Senate? It's a 50-50 there with Kamala being the tiebreaker. They don't hold the White House. And in blue states, you see the economy is somewhat more shitty than many red states. Why is it that they're trying to blame the GOP? Is it because the economy is genuinely bad? No, it's just blame shifting. In the 11th hour of the election, they're trying to claim that if the GOP would just do everything that we told them to do, if they'd be good neocons and just buckle down, accept a little pork barrel handout, and then sell out their own voting constituents, everything would be fine right now. It's not like we locked down all of the economy and fucked everything over and now insist on giving tens of billions of free funny money bucks to the Ukrainians while people suffer. That couldn't be why. My apologies that there's the recommended for you, read now, read later horse shit up there on the archive. I don't know, it wasn't there initially, I think. I don't know. I did something wrong with that link. My apologies. Go check on Ataturk. Yeah, he's missing most of his face. Yeah, just pound the shit out of it. I'm going to flood Ataturk out of Turkey in retribution. Holy retribution. Joker 1 on Rumble. Can January 6th prisoners self-identify as Ray Epps and get out of jail? One would hope so. It'd be funny. I'd like to see someone use that kind of defense. Apparently, I guess the official story is that he's informed on people or something. He cooperated fully, so they left him alone. Well, shit, other people I'm sure have tried to cop deals behind closed doors, of course. They still got thrown in solitary for extended periods. They still got thrown in a cell. Transylvania 90. A few years ago, Cuba allowed new cars to be sold there again. Taxes were so insanely high that a 15,000 euro hatchback car was sold for 85,000 USD in Cuba. Yeah, that's what happens when a limited supply meets very high demand. Next story. 4 migrant buses arrive in New York City as Mayor Adams' tent city begins construction. A parking lot in the Bronx in New York City is being turned into a migrant processing center. Yeah, that's not going to be a problem. A tent city in New York City when you're approaching October. That's not going to be really uncomfortable for people. Another caravan of illegal migrant buses arrived in New York City on Tuesday as Mayor Eric Adams continues his efforts to erect tents and cots to centralize incoming travelers. That's funny. You're a sanctuary state, right? I thought that everyone was already processed at the border, so why do you need to do anything for these people now? Just give them money. Give them a place, set them up in a hotel room or something there. Well, don't you have homeless shelters, Mayor? Why is New York City interning them in a tent camp in the middle of autumn? The first Tuesday bus arrived at approximately 6 a.m., followed by a second at 7 a.m., subsequent buses at 7:16 and 7:40. I think that they should make it 40 buses. What should be done, look at that. There's a picture down there in the article. It's a big-ass fucking parking lot. You need that much space? Shit, look at the processing centers down on the southern border, how overcrowded they are. I guess they decided that it was finally a problem. I thought this was diversity. I thought you were a sanctuary city in a sanctuary state. I thought that you wanted these people to move in. Obama and Biden are more than happy to send them around to anyone who's willing. Hell, they did that with some Syrian asylum seekers in Rutland. In the end, I think one family came, or 2 families or something like that. And I mean, that doesn't cause anyone any hassle. Nobody cares. Originally, it was going to be a lot more than that. And they were trying to send them around to various small towns in the United States. Why not New York City? You've got plenty of derelict properties. Refurbish a couple of them and turn them into migrant camps. You can do that. How many empty factories and shit are there in like the Bronx and in Brooklyn and stuff like that? There's all sorts of derelict properties. But there are homeless people crashing there. So what's the problem? Why do you need to reprocess these people? Officials intend the camp to be a processing center where migrants can stay for 4 days before entering the city's shelter system, which has been overwhelmed by the influx. Wow, 4 buses. Shit, we're at capacity. Don't you think this speaks to a problem with New York City's own economy and infrastructure? The city, how many there's over 10 million people in New York City. I think it's like 17 million in the metro system, and you can't deal with 4 busloads of fucking people for an extended period of time? Professor Plague Bat, lol, you've got a general on poll about a laptop scam. Yes, the Canadian laptop scammer. My hat is off to you for some of the funniest copy pasta I have ever seen. He doesn't post as much anymore. I always like those threads. Let me look through and see if I can find it. On Politically Incorrect. Oh, yeah. Someone, stop making threads about yourself, Sticks. I assure you that it was not actually me. I fucking love that. I absolutely love that. Now people are posting about games and migrants and everything else there. I have been scammed many times by Sticks. I have to confess, somebody has to stop him. I love some of the comments that you get in there. Really funny from people who don't like me. I'm looking through to see if there's anything hilarious. These guys are all on Odyssey. I don't know if it'll work on the TV. I actually have no clue about that. Somebody can cue them in. Excellent. Anyway, Crossover Maniac. A gay guy named Pete Buttigieg is in charge of running trains. If this was a parody, I would be tempted to say it was over the top. Yeah, I mean, that's the entire Biden admin, though, to be clear. Oh, shit, I accidentally closed out the tab for Rumble. Oh, no. Ah, shit. Cock. Bunny Rarebit. New York City police who lost jobs due to the non-compliance with the jab won a New York Supreme Court case and had their jobs with pay back on Friday, 9/23. Sounds like a good sign for all of us, including healthcare workers. And Joker 1. DeSantis should rent a cruise ship, fill it with 5,000 illegals, give them tent shovels and maps of hidden treasure in the backyards of Martha's Vineyard homes. You could use a cruise ship for this purpose. You can get several thousand people in one go. Fuck the planes and buses and shit unless you want a massive-ass convoy. David Green, State Department, Americans flee Russia now. War versus U.S. No, that's pretty standard whenever there's a conflict going on. The problem is if you're an American in Russia, you might have tensions against Americans boil over in the wake of especially the Nordstream sabotage, and people could get hurt. They could get targeted simply because they're American. That's fairly common for the State Department to issue warnings like that. Poor New York City. 4 whole busloads of people. Shit, you can fit them in one small city block anywhere in New York City. It's so dense. First lawsuit is filed challenging Biden's costly and unfair student loan forgiveness plan. The Pacific Legal Foundation identified a group of taxpayers who will be unfairly hurt by student loan forgiveness. Yes, now that we have a proper plaintiff, the courts will step in. I suspect that Joe Biden does not expect his student loan debt grift to actually be upheld. I think it was timed carefully so that no legal decision could come in before the midterms. And if it does, it'll just be called a Trump justice or something like that, even if they were appointed by fucking Biden himself, probably. And the whole goal is to buy people's votes. Promise a bunch of people, hey, I'm going to give you back some of the money that, I already robbed from you in the first place to give to Ukrainians or migrants or something. So be happy and please vote Democratic in hopes that we'll do it again. That's basically what it is. And I don't think that they have any intent on making it stick. I don't expect the Biden admin, if they get overruled and the judge says, look, this particular debt forgiveness that you're trying to give discriminates against people who paid off their loans. It discriminates against people who never took out loans. It discriminates against people who have less debt. You're giving them less simply because you're covering a flat cost, et cetera, et cetera. You're discriminating against people who didn't get Pell. So their parents made $10 too much that fiscal year and they didn't get all of these grants and you're having the amount that they can have. You're also discriminating against people who had it going on at the time, took out the loans, then fell on hard times, and maybe they still don't qualify, or vice versa. They got Pell, but then they became a millionaire. They're still getting 20 instead of 10K, and it's all sorts of fucked up. I don't think that they will even bother to defend it meaningfully after that happens. And I do expect that is likely. I've been saying for some time, like as not, the courts do not uphold the legality here. And they shouldn't, by the way. I don't want your fucking money. I mean, I know I pay enough in taxes, so it's my money anyway, because, self-employment, you get hammered. But I don't want it. I don't need the rest. Let somebody else have it. Give it to someone who actually needs it. Miguel Barrera, thoughts on the Xi Jinping coup rumors going on? They appear to be false. Strong and Grand. Hey, Sticks, thanks for your informational candor on current events. Been a fan for years, doing my best not to be blackpilled. It's amazing what happens when ballot printers go brrr. Yeah, and money printers too. Arguably a bigger problem. Sebastian Monroe, LMAO, I've totally been scammed by you, said Paul. No, it's a joke. If you look at it in context, that person's being facetious. Sticks is streaming right now. He has no time to make or interact in this thread. I didn't make it, but I am looking at it. I don't know, I'll pay sporadic attention, I guess. Hello, politically incorrect. I am indeed an Andy 6 shitposter on B. I have already pointed that out to people. When you see a thread about Andy 6's sopping wet loaf log of shit slitting down your whore throat, there's a possibility that I'm the one that made it. Just to be clear. Any threads about me, though, I didn't make. I haven't done that in a very long time. It's not worth it, generally speaking, because then people who don't like you just pour in to bitch about you, because that's a national pastime in politics at this point. So don't worry, I'm not spamming my own material. How many people, by the way, are watching live? Oh, shit, there's over 2,000 people watching live on Rumble right now. I guess ridiculing Kim.com for defaming the site's owners pays off. About half as many as are watching on YouTube, almost exactly. Again, when you look at the audience differential, the engagement is twice as high on Rumble as it is on YouTube. I wonder why someone like Kim.com, who has political views wildly dissociated from anything you'll generally find on Rumble, would be pissed off about the site getting a $500 million evaluation and more than tripling in size in a short period of time. I wonder why. Yeah, we're getting up towards 7,000 people watching live right now. Keep pounding Pixel Planet. Take that link and keep pounding Ataturk into the pavement. We're going to turn him into the ocean. It's going to be funny. People saying unkind things on Ataturk's face. By the way, if you are easily offended, Pixel Planet and Politically Correct, probably not the places for you. Princess, I love Sticks use cuss words so randomly. Shitcock. YouTube censored me. Why the weird spellings? Yeah, I know YouTube's got some fucking problems lately. Ultramaga 721. During World War II, many Europeans used methane or wood gas to run their vehicles. Didn't the Nazis towards the end? I think they were using coal gas or something. Several of us here run farm vehicles on wood gas. Old tech using sawdust and wood scraps. I will never use an electric truck. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's efficient. Probably have to clean that engine a lot, though, just to be clear. Bunny Rarebit, how do you count the unemployed who were denied unemployment or fell off the rolls? There's likely no record of them. Employers in New York State discriminated against unjabbed applicants. They still are. Agreed. All forms of mandate with regards to that should be scrapped. It's not necessary. Now, we've got a real Trump derangement syndrome story. You know, Maggie Haberman, you know, the CNN columnist there who wrote a book about her experiences with the Trump administration. There's some new claims being related here by Rolling Stone, which is the least rock and roll of all legacy media outlets, ironically enough. They're definitely like the old rockers of that era, increasingly haggard sellouts. Donald Trump assumed staffers of color at White House were waiters, book says. That's one claim. The book also describes Donald Trump's relationship with Kara Young, a model he dated. Soon after meeting her parents, Trump joked that she had inherited her beauty from her mother and her intelligence from her dad, the white side. Again, press X to doubt. Fits in too much with the TDS sort of bottom line. Donald Trump's history of racist remarks and actions left some to conclude that even his vague statements cloaked bigotry, including a weird emphasis on him having renovated the White House bathroom. Note to self, if you renovate your bathroom, obviously it's because the former tenants were of a different color than you. That's the only reason that you would possibly think to do so. Why didn't he want to shit on the same toilet that Obama used? What a racist. That's basically what they're saying. This is grade A. This is the most Trump derangement syndrome I think I've seen yet. This is even better than Pissgate. Yeah, Donald Trump's remarks are just some examples of his casual racism detailed in the pages of Maggie Haberman's Confidence Man, reviewed by Rolling Stone. I'm sure that they give it a 5-star review. Very eye-opening. If only we had seen this before 2016, we would have worked twice as hard to get Hillary elected. Meanwhile, I'm thinking to myself, where were you talking about Donald Trump being casually racist prior to his presidential run? You wanted to give him awards for inclusion and shit like that. He would screw a white man the same way as a black man on a mortgage deal. Hey, he is a cutthroat in business. He doesn't give a shit what race you are. He just wants your money. You think that somebody walks into the Trump steak bar to get a Trump steak, he gives a shit about what color their skin is? The only thing he's looking at is what their clothes are like and wondering how much they're going to spend on their order. Jared Pierce, I just bought a share of rum. I wonder if you mean actually Rumble or if you're making a joke about alcohol. Yeah, I see Ataturk's not looking so well there in Turkey. Keep pouring in. Again, link in the description, cross-platform, and pinned at the top of chat if you're on YouTube. We've laid waste to Ataturk. I think the whole thing could use some improvement, though, not just his face. Like, his hat's fucked up, too. The other day, you should have seen it. It was a fucking deformed, no longer even resembled a human figure. Yeah, somebody tempting me to get to talk about certain ethnic groups on my live stream because it will increase traffic to my channels. Sure will, right before I get banned. Transylvanian 90. These awful tell-all books full of BS are like those garbage gossip mags at grocery stores with extra steps. How anyone believes them is beyond me. Yeah, usually what happens is, you know, you've got a reasonable career, and you know it's fashionable to hate Trump. So you make up bullshit about him. You know, you met him once, and so you say weird shit about what he supposedly said, and you turn it into a book. You will get hooked up with some middlemen who have Chinese contacts who assure you that the Chinese public will love your book once it's translated. I think I can move you 500,000 copies. Make a couple $1,000,000. Doesn't that sound like a deal? Write a fucking book. Yeah, we'll take care of the editing and everything. Don't worry, we'll get it done. And then they get a kickback. This has happened multiple times with the Trump administration and the defamation thereof. Happens constantly. I mean, look at the Gorilla Channel. There were people that were taking that seriously. Pissgate was effectively a 4chan joke. It took him in hook, line, and sinker. There are still people, liberals out there, who will swear up and down that the Steele dossier and shit like that was true and that was included therein. Bunny Rarebit. When you were here before, couldn't look you in the eye. You're just like an angel. Your skin makes me cry. You float like a feather in a beautiful world. All right. Musically assured destruction. It's sad. Uniparty grifters and leftoids have to rely on Trump to be relevant. Yeah, I mean, all they have is Trump. They can't talk about the economy. They can't really talk about the war effort in Ukraine, although they try to. They've lost on everything. They've got maybe a slim lead on education at this point because the Republicans unwisely pivoted away from the issue that they were winning on for some reason. I have no clue. Poor Ataturk. And you know that they'll counterattack by trying to clank parts of Clankdom down in the coast of Africa. We'll see. Have they attacked the Ouroboros yet? Yeah, just a little bit. They're turning part of it red. Why don't you just spam it with pixels or something like that, Ottomans? I don't know. They haven't been doing too well. They can't seem to coordinate anything unless they've got a streamer directing them. As opposed to me, I just pop the link in and then I laugh about Ataturk's face disappearing in 5 seconds. Istra, what the hell am I doing here? I don't know. Pixie, well wishes to everyone in Florida. Yes, we should probably briefly mention, if you are down in Florida, you're about to get hit by a fairly big one. Some people, I think, were underestimating the damage that this storm could do. Hurricane Ian. It's, I believe, at a Cat 4 and still rising. And they were saying from the NOAA they were hopeful it wouldn't rise to a Category 5, but we've seen stranger. That means fairly major damage, which is what the Democrats want. They'll blame it on DeSantis. Then they don't have to just talk about climate change, although they will anyway. Princess, I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo. What the hell am I doing here? I don't belong here. I get the reference. Not a huge fan of that song, by the way. It's like it goes hard, but it's like, eh. It's one of those songs where it's take it or leave it. Sometimes you're in the mood to listen to it, and sometimes you're like, fuck that shit. Then you go listen. I listen to music from the goddamn 20s and 30s more than that sort of thing anyway. Joker 1, the mother's looks and father's brains was a quote from the film Gandhi about Nehru. I would hope Haberman was more original than that. I think that's an old concept anyway. It's maybe she got it from that. That'd be funny. Cruel. The Nordstream sabotage also fits very well into the climate change paranoia. More evidence of who did it. Yes, it does, actually. Well, look, the infrastructure for fossil fuel is vulnerable to sabotage for international reasons, for political reasons. Clearly, we need more EVs. That would solve the problem. Colonel Quail, Dear Sticks, any Sephardic in your family lineage? No, my family, on my dad's side, it's 50% English and 50% Scottish. On my mom's side, it's 50% English, and then the other half is German and Slovak. and there's possibly some Abenaki, some Native American lineage in there, but we're not exactly sure. That's what she claimed and what her dad apparently claimed. It's possible, but we're not sure, and I'm certainly not going to give my get a genetics test so the government has my DNA. So I don't know. Maybe I could get a genetic test and just put it under a false name with somebody else or something like that, I suppose. But Joe Shit the Ragman would like to have his DNA tested. I guess I could do that. That'd be funny. I think the Greeks are griefing Ataturk at the same time. They usually pixel in that medium blue. And we're just sinking the coast of Turkey into the ocean with that color, so it's a little different. They are fighting back, by the way, over in Greece. They are liberating their own territory city by city. I don't even think that the Turkish players are even trying to resurrect what used to be Cyprus. It's still gone. They started to draw an outline the other night. It disappeared because we destroyed it, and they never tried again. I don't know. Reality Paranormal. I'm working a medical shelter during Ian. DeSantis has done a great job prepping Florida for Ian. Blessed be to the rest of my fellow Floridians. Yeah, as best prepared as you can be when you have a storm of that magnitude. It's like people down. It's like earthquakes in California, 2.0, 3.0. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody even wakes up during the night. They're like, oh, it shook a little bit for 2 seconds. Who gives a shit? It does that every day. Then you get a 7.0 and, hell breaks loose anyway, even though they're prepared for those things. Be the same with a hurricane. It strengthens to a category 5. It can do catastrophic damage. I had some people earlier telling me that so far it's mainly just rain, at least in their area. Of course, Florida is quite large, so. You want to give your gene sequence to China? Take 23andMe. Yes, keep in mind all the genetic testing companies work with the U.S. government and with China. So if you're going to give DNA, it should definitely not be under your real name or address. You should definitely use a proxy. Wild Child, hey Sticks, do you have tattoos? No. I have a skinny puppy tramp stamp. Ditto, you like them. Or do you like them? Them in Ministry were my jam in the 90s. Lol. And Ministry's good, skinny puppy's good. But no, I don't have any tattoos. I chose to be the rebel of my generation. I look around. People my age, it's like more than half of them have tattoos. Less here, but in the United States, definitely. I don't know. I don't like needles anyway, so fuck that. PWN Tang. My gym CCTV channel plays news and shows the jukebox playlist. It was talking about Martha's Vineyard, and it said the current song was Cracker Island by Gorillaz. Lol. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's true. Anyway, I think that I'm going to go offline, that is. And I don't know, I'll play around with Pixel Planet. I'll check up on Ataturk maybe like half an hour from now and see how much damage has been done, because Turkey never fully recovered from the last time that we griefed it and took over the entirety of the country, along with enormous chunks of the Levant region, some of which we still hold. And but I'm not making one-offs about it anymore. Like, I'm not calling up dedicated raids because it was annoying too many people. I'll just talk about it briefly within live streams. So I thank you to the over 6,000 people who tuned in live, almost 6,500 actually at peak. But I will go and do other things now because I have things to do. That's about all. Oh, wait. I got interrupted. Good one. You got it in right at the end. Bunny Rarebit, did you discuss Pelosi's visit to Armenia? Is she trying to make herself seem relevant when they make Biden pay for losing support? I don't know. She'll never be relevant. And one last one, musically assured destruction. Months ago, Biden said that if Russia invaded Ukraine, we would bring an end to it. When pressed, he said, I promise you we'll be able to do that. True. A bit of circumstantial evidence for suspecting that the U.S. was involved with the Nordstream sabotage. That's about all. Peace out.